Hi, my name's Skylar Kosegi. Today's November 19th, and my project is on chemoreception. Alright, so what is chemoreception? It's our perception of chemical stimuli. So in our bodies, we use it for the special senses of smell and taste, which we'll talk about both of those. So smell, this is just a basic overview of the pathway it follows to be processed into our brain. So the chemicals, when we smell in something that has a scent, it will trigger the olfactory nerve that's in the back of the nasal cavity, which you can see in that picture there. And then it'll pass through basically like our skull to synapse with the olfactory bulb, which is the secondary sensory neurons. And then they will travel down the olfactory tract to reach the either olfactory cortex or the limbic system in our brains. So the olfactory sensory neurons, you can see in the picture there, they have one single dendrite that goes to the surface of the olfactory epithelium, which is a surface on the back top portion of our nasal cavity that contains all of these sensory neurons. Then it has an axon that's extending to the olfactory bulb, which it synapses with. And what's interesting about these sensory neurons is that they have such short lifespans, so that the stem cells in that area are needing to reproduce new neurons to replace the ones that die continuously, which is a certain thing that's being studied in research. So it travels down the olfactory tract to reach the brain. What's interesting about the sense of smell is that it skips the thalamus, which is like the relay station in our brain for other senses. So this is evidence that one of the pieces of evidence that sense may be our most ancient sense, because it was probably developed before the thalamus, and the other senses later developed to depend on the thalamus as a relay sense or a relay station, which is interesting. So from the olfactory tract, you can either go to the olfactory cortex or the limbic system. The olfactory cortex is what's actually processing those signals that it receives to form our perception of smell. So basically what happens is that each sensory neuron has a receptor that's responding to a certain type of odor. So the brain is getting different combinations of these signals that it knows belongs to certain odor, and it's combining those together to form our perception of smell. And then the limbic system is also where these signals may reach, like structures such as the amygdala or the hippocampus, and this is more evidence that it may be our most primal sense because those are such ancient parts of our brain. And they're associated with emotion and memory. So that might be why certain smells may trigger nostalgia in us. It might remind you of a certain memory or something, which is really interesting. So those are the two parts of the brain that smell can reach. And then the second special sense that uses chemoreception is taste. And what's interesting about this is a lot of our taste depends on smell, which is also uses chemoreception. So that's important to note. And then there's 5 basic sensations of taste that are combining to form our overall taste of whatever we're eating. So we see there's sweet, bitter, sour, salty, or umami, which is savory taste from maybe meat or something. They found that sweet and sour tastes are the receptors that taste those sensations use ion channels to convert those chemicals into electrical signals, while salty, bitter, and umami are using G protein coupled receptors to convert those signals so that our brain can process them. So pathway for taste, our taste buds are what have our taste receptors. So in one taste bud, there's usually 50 to 150 taste receptor cells there. And what's happening is the tastin, or the chemical that's in the food that we're eating, it's dissolving in our saliva and it's interacting with the receptor on the taste receptor cells that are found in our taste buds. And then after that, they're releasing chemical messenger molecules, which are activating primary sensory neurons. And this is through the cranial nerves 7, 9, and 10. From there, it's synapsing with the medulla, and taste does go through the thalamus, which it uses as like a relay station in our brain, and then it sends that signal to the gustatory cortex. And that's where the brain is interpreting and processing those signals to allow us to have a perception of taste. The method or the way it does this and interprets it is called population coding. So it's seeing like which types of neurons for each types of taste are responding the strongest to something that we're eating, and it's combining those together to form like an overall perception of taste. This is the study guide that I made, so it's like a quiz that covers some basic information from the presentation. So the first thing is just like some anatomy, which also covers like the overall pathway from how smell reaches the brain through structures in our nose. It also covers like which cranial nerves are responsible for each special sense, and just like the overall basic pathways for both. That is all. Thank you.